Good morning. Hope your Wednesday is off to a good start. Mine's going pretty well so far. I'm in my thinking chair with a good second cup of coffee. I confess that coffee in the morning is my one addiction, other than being addicted to breathing. But it's great to have you again this morning to pop the hood on another Bible translation. So grab yourself a cup of coffee if you haven't already done so, and we will get started. Today we will be looking at the Message Bible, which is a translation / paraphrase done by Eugene Peterson progressively through most of the 90s. This is not part of the alphabet soup of Bible translations. And you know them: KJV, NKJV, NASB, ESV, NRSV, RSV, NIV, etc., etc., etc. This is the Message. And like I said, it was primarily the work of Eugene Peterson, who was beginning of his career, and he was an academic, seminary professor, but actually spent most of his working career as a pastor of a local church and writing. Nav Press approached Peterson about doing the Message, I guess about 90, and he agreed to do it, and the New Testament was published in 1993, and then progressively over the next several years, various parts of the Old Testament were added in, and then the whole thing was finished and published in 2002. And Eugene Peterson he is a primary author, if you will, translator, but it wasn't just him. There was a committee of well-known, recognized scholars who served as translation consultants. I referred several weeks ago to the Living Bible. And in a way, to me, the Message is sort of like the Living Bible. And let me explain that. The Living Bible began as just a compilation of one man's paraphrases of Scripture to teach his kids. If you remember, this guy, he was a businessman, had spent every night he'd try to read parts of the Bible to his kids, and reading from the King James or maybe the American Standard Version, he'd read it to them, and they'd say, "Okay, Daddy, what does that mean?" Then he would explain it. He would sort of put it into his own words, and that became the Living Bible. And with the Message, you get sort of the same thing, except the person doing the work is someone who has skill and training in the languages, in Biblical Greek and ancient Hebrew. So the end result with the Message is something that sort of blurs the line between a translation and a paraphrase. It sort of blurs that line and straddles it. The way I heard it explained is this: if you look at the spectrum of light, you know that there's a difference between red and orange. That's red and that's orange. There's a difference, but it can be difficult to tell in a spectrum where the red ends and the orange begins. And maybe that's sort of where the Message lives. It lives in that in-between space between between paraphrase and translation. It's a very folksy translation, very idiomatic translation. That's sort of, maybe that's the way to look at it. And at times it is clearly paraphrasing, and at other times you can tell it's a novel translation. So I'm going to read you some examples from the Message, and sort of give you my impression of it, my opinion. So Genesis 1:1. Peterson renders it this way. This is Genesis 1:1 and 2. First this, God created the heavens and the earth. All you see, all you don't see. Earth was a soup of nothingness, a bottomless emptiness, an inky blackness. God's Spirit brooded like a dove above the watery abyss. And first this, God created the heavens and the earth. All you see, all you don't see. Earth was a soup of nothingness, a bottomless emptiness, an inky blackness. God's Spirit brooded like a bird above the watery abyss. A more standard way of translating that would be something like this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. That's a pretty generic, traditional way of translating it. When you look at it, there's some things that Peterson just sort of added in there that are explanatory. All you see, all you don't see, that's his explanation. That's not in any original, it's just, that's Peterson interpreting. And, formless and void. And so rather than saying earth was formless and void, Peterson uses a series of phrases to convey the same message. A soup of nothingness, a bottomless abyss, an inky blackness. Those three phrases to convey the same point, that the earth was formless and void. Psalm 23, we probably know that pretty well. Peterson renders it this way: God, my shepherd, I don't need a thing. You have bedded me down in lush meadows. You find me quiet pools to drink from. True to your word, you let me catch my breath and send me in the right direction. Even when the way goes through Death Valley, I'm not afraid when you walk at my side. Your trusty shepherd's crook makes me feel secure. You serve me a 6-course dinner right in front of my enemies. You revive my drooping head. My cup brims with blessing. Your beauty and love chase after me all the day, every day of my life. I'm back home in the house of God for the rest of my life. That's how Peterson renders the 23rd Psalm. I'll give you another example of this from Matthew 5. This is from the Beatitudes. In the Beatitudes, blessed are you. Matthew 5, 11 and 12. Not only that, count yourselves blessed every time people put you down or throw you out or speak lies about you to discredit me. What it means is that the truth is too close for comfort and they are uncomfortable. Then verse 12, you can be glad when that happens. Give a cheer even. For though they don't like it, I do, and all heaven applauds. And know that you are in good company. My prophets and witnesses have always gotten into this kind of trouble. And this is, you get the sense, that gives you another flavor for how Peterson handles things in the Message. the first verse of that I read is very, that's paraphrasing. This little bit in there, what it means is that the truth is too close for comfort and they are uncomfortable. That's just Peterson putting in his opinion. That's not actually in the Bible. That's just Peterson adding an explanation. Verse 12 is much closer to being something of a translation. That's what I mean. You can't, it's hard to nail down the message, whether it's a true paraphrase or it's a translation. It sort of blurs the line in between. And at times, rather than having something explanatory and a footnote at the bottom, Peterson just includes that in the text, which might be my biggest gripe with the message, is things that really are explanatory that aren't in there, that aren't part of Scripture, get put there, when really they're better served putting a footnote at the bottom. So, my own opinion, my own 2 cents worth on the message is this. To begin with, I want to say that I never met Eugene Peterson. I wish I had. Even though I had never met him, he died in 2017, 2019. In a way, he has been a pastor to me, and even though he never met me, his book, Under the Unpredictable Plant, about the ministry and the call of Jonah, was powerful. I mean, that really helped shape me a lot when I was trying to discern my own call. Other books, The Unnecessary Pastor, The Contemplative Pastor, wonderful pastoral works that I've read and cherish them. Every time I'm doing some work in what's called the Megillah, and those are Lamentations, Ruth, Esther, Song of Songs, and Ecclesiastes. Those 5 books together in the Old Testament are called the Megillah. And anytime I'm doing any sort of work with them, I go back to Peterson, a book that he did, 5 Smooth Stones for Pastoral Work. So if I have any critique of the message, it's not because I don't like Eugene Peterson, because he was a phenomenal Christian writer. So Peterson said in the preface, in his introduction to the message, that this was written for 2 groups of people. That it was written for people who'd never read the Bible and would have difficulty understanding it. And that it was also written for people who were so familiar with the Bible that it has sort of lost its punch. Peterson said in the preface that he did not intend this to be a study Bible, that it was meant to be read. It wasn't meant to be used in study. The message, ever since it was published in 2002 or 3, has been really controversial. So it's always been very, very popular, and it's been controversial. Some people have loved it. Other people have called it an abomination or a pagan Bible. Toss out, if you read something that says it's an abomination, that it's a pagan Bible, don't believe that. Don't read it. You can find all sorts of crazy stuff. In my opinion, and I'm not a great fan of the message. That's my own opinion. I'm not a great fan of the message, and it's because it's there are too many occasions where Peterson adds, like I said, explanatory things into the text of Scripture that really aren't Scripture. Things that that would have been much better served to have been put in a footnote. I think that where he translates, I appreciate a fresh look at things. Sometimes he seems to be trying to be a little bit too cute, a little bit too clever in his translation, but that's a very subjective opinion. I think that if you read the Message, that's fine. It's intended to be read, but I wouldn't. It's not a Bible that you'd want to bring to a Bible study, because it's not close enough. It's not close enough. There's too much in there that really should be put in a footnote. And when it's there in chapter and verse, you need to feel like that what you're reading is actually Scripture. I really wish in doing the work that he had decided that he had footnotes for things that were simply his explanatory comments, his interpretation. So if you've got a message, I'm not saying you need to toss it out. Don't do that. I don't dislike Peterson at all. Like I said, Under the Unpredictable Plant was transformative for me. It was a powerful book for me when I was discerning my call. Several other books of his have been really useful for me. I highly recommend him as a writer. If you want to read the Message, that's great. I would say this, that if you read the Message, always read it side by side. Don't read it alone. Don't read the Message alone, but read it along with something that is a true translation. So that's my 2 cents worth on the Message. Again, that's just my opinion on it, and you are free to agree or disagree as you see fit. But I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday, and next week I'll probably be wrapping up this series through different Bible translations. Y'all have a great day.